Hello, this is Dr. Jane Galloway, and it's my great pleasure to be bringing you the 12th and last of this series of podcasts on the gateways, the wisdom of 12-step spirituality, in this form at least. This is a pretty straightforward gateway by gateway, opening by opening presentation of the concepts and some of the tools presented in the book. So the future work that we do on this will be a little more impressionistic, if you will. And so this is really the last of the explaining of the spine of this work. So I've really enjoyed going through the work with you out there in podcast land. And I'll tell you, this process is one that changes the person going through it, whether we're going through it to explain it to somebody else, to work with someone in a program setting as a sponsor or a friend, or really just reading it. I mean, I have had an experience of several ahas myself as we've gone through this process. So I encourage you to really see the vitality in the 12 steps. Apart from any formalized religious path, really, the interesting thing is that because the founders of AA, what became AA, were available psychically to be the conduit for downloading this unbelievably expansive opening into a true spirituality that works, we have the opportunity to access that same spirituality however we get there. Meaning, if you have a very strong relationship to one or another religious or formal spiritual path, there's nothing in that path that's incongruous with working the 12 steps. I think I've said that quite a lot, but I really want to make it clear because these steps work with or without a religious path, and yet are an authentic, deeply spiritual opening into many spiritual paths. So I encourage you to, have a look at them. The 12th step, which is, of course, the opening into the 12th gateway, says, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we shared the message with others and practiced these principles in all our affairs. So this presupposes that a spiritual awakening has taken place. First of all, I want to make it clear that I have not directly, literally quoted each one of the 12 steps. The spirit of the 12 steps is clearly delineated in each one of the gateways. I changed a little bit of the language, and I think I'd like to make that clear here because somebody mentioned it to me, so I wanted to clear it up. I changed the language for a couple reasons, and one of the major reasons is to make the language more universal. I think the founders were using extremely androcentric or male oriented language in their description of this path, and because the path is followed now by so many people, I chose to say things like, well, in the 12th step it actually says we shared the message with other alcoholics. So I'm presenting the 12 steps as an opening into the gateways into a deeper spiritual life, not just for alcoholics. So I changed that in the way I wrote that. Some of the 12 steps, that there's so many of them now, there are like 40 different 12-step programs, and one of them may use similar language to what I use here. So, this isn't the Bible. And even the Bible was was subject to quite a lot of change until the canon of that was closed. So I just kind of wanted to clarify that it's the spirit of this, and what step 12 says is having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. That's pretty deep stuff. This says it presupposes if you've done all of these steps in a rigorous manner, or even just committed yourself to doing them, forget rigorous, you will have had a spiritual awakening. I kind of like the word rigorous, however, because we talk about rigorous honesty as part of the necessity of doing this work. And this is one of the things that I wondered as I was beginning to work on this book and this method. I really wondered if people who weren't utterly desperate, as everyone I know who ended up in a 12-step program was when they entered that program, would have the really the willingness to do the kind of inner reflection and rigorous work that's required to really get the benefit of these steps. I think now we're in a different era. I think we're in an era where people are waking up all over the place and are really in kind of another great awakening period. So I think so. I think people will be open to doing the kind of inner work because people are exploring many different spiritual paths. But so this particular step is so powerful because it says, okay, it doesn't mince words. Having had a spiritual awakening. Okay, that's is that past perfect tense, I think? So it's stating that you've already had a spiritual awakening if you've practiced these steps and principles. And so now what you do is you share the message with others, and you practice these principles in all of your affairs. That does mean rigorous honesty. And it means making amends, looking at one's behaviors and sharing with God, ourselves, and another human being the exact nature of our missteps in life. And so it really opens the door into a way of life, right? So step 12, I'm going to tell you the kind of the spine of the bento box tools for Gateway Essence 11 is kind of a shorter list than it is for some of the other ones. The chakra is the crystal above the head, so this isn't one of the 7. This is a chakra that many teachers talk about, and I actually learned about while I was creating the book. When I originally created the book, I only was using 7 chakras, and of course there are 12 steps, so that has created some geometrical, playing around with how I was going to make this system work exactly, because this is just a tool for you all. This is not something, again, written in stone. This is a way to really work that level of work and get some benefit and get some ideas for your own inner work. But as I began to work on the chakra systems even more, I learned that certain teachers talk about not only one additional chakra, but some talk about several additional ones. I'm only highlighting the crystal above the head. I love that too, because a crystal is a purifying stone, gemstone. And so when we look at this final step of the 12 and the idea that we have transmuted so many situations through working these steps and principles into positives from negatives, it makes so much wonderful sense to have the chakra that we are focusing upon be this crystal above the head, because it's a wonderful metaphor and practice with a crystal. A clear quartz crystal is what I've always imagined as being appropriate for this level of growth. So it makes so much sense as we're transmuting. That means turning. It's alchemy. It's turning straw into gold, if you will. So this is the chakra we focus upon. The functions of that are purification, as I just said, and activation of the etheric light field. So we talk in the book, I talk in the book and a bit about the etheric body and about having holes in the etheric body and how we really fill those up by meditation and prayer and much of the action of this process of the 12 steps. Also by diet, by cleaning up our diet, we close some holes in the etheric body. But certainly alcohol does tend to open up holes in the etheric, and the etheric is an energetic field around, standing out from the physical body. It can be seen by people who see auras, and that's a whole other teaching. And there's a way to learn to see auras too and be sensitive to them. But you know, when someone walks in a room and you sense something about them, you're sensing energy from their etheric light field. And so this really is about turning that on, activating that. Powerful, right? And then the location is the etheric or the energetic body, which I've just explained. The color, clear crystal and turquoise. Really, I would say those are two of my favorite stones. Probably they are my two favorite stones. So clear crystal and turquoise. The musical note is not A, B, C, D, E, F, G. The musical note is Om, the universal sound. So the musical note for the 12th step, the 12th gateway, is Om. And the point on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is peak experience and enlightenment. And the ritual that I'm suggesting you take a look at for this 12th gateway is that of the labyrinth. So once we've worked through the preceding steps and gateways, we discover that in order to remain in the flow of universal oneness. Now see, there's a thing about getting there or having a spiritual experience, but having a spiritual awakening is a progressive thing, right? So we discover that in order to remain in that flow, we must be of service. This is the great lesson for me of the 12-step path, actually. Service is so critical. Life is just constant change. We either are moving toward peace and serenity and enlightenment or away from it. Another way of thinking of that is we're either moving forward or backward. And the action of service assures that we are in the flow of the highest vibration. It keeps us moving forward, in other words. Numerous studies have shown that altruism or selfless service blesses the person or situation you serve. It quickens the immune system of the person doing the service, and it widens the worldview and becomes a way of life. So it's in a way kind of selfish in the best way. You truly can't keep it unless you give it away. The good news is that there are millions of ways to be of service in the world. The point here is action. Really, this whole step and gateway are about getting into action. Rather than contemplation, inner work, etc., which we continue to do every day, this step is about action, getting into action and working with others. Choose, act, do something that makes a positive difference in someone's life or in the world. That's the point. Do something nice for someone and don't get found out. Step 12 states that the result of practicing these steps is to have a spiritual awakening. And once we wake up, we need to share the message with others. It's really simple. Not necessarily easy, to be sure, always, but very simple. You can't keep it unless you give it away. This reaching out to help another is the very essence of the 12 steps. It is how, and frankly, why they work. The spiral path, the ancients described the spiral as a metaphysical system for understanding spiritual action or process. The spiral launches us with great energy, and then the thrust doubles back on itself before moving forward again. The doubling back is a time for shedding anything that is no longer of use. It's critical for us to shed if we plan to move forward into life with light and authenticity. So as we move forward, then we go back, the dark side of the moon. So think of really a spiral, like a slinky. Some of you may know a slinky, the toy. The steps support this action perfectly, thrusting forward, doubling back for introspection, and letting go, shedding, amending, and repairing, reconnecting, serving, and then again thrusting forward. So I'm going to suggest a ritual for a labyrinth. And this is the closing, the walking of the path that really is a life path in this and other incarnations. A labyrinth is an intricate maze in which it is a challenge to find the exit. I don't know if you've ever been in a labyrinth. They're wonderful. They're outside, and some are very roughly hewn and demarcated with stones, etc., and others are very done with hedges and in beautiful country gardens. Whatever labyrinth you found your way into, just like in life, it's easier to get in there sometimes than it is to find the way out, and it's a great metaphor. The origin of the maze is in Greek mythology, actually. The pattern is widely used to symbolize the journey of life and can be a wonderful meditation on the twists and turns of the walk we embark upon each day. Running into dead ends, seemingly impossible cul-de-sacs and puzzling twists and turns, the persistent labyrinth walker will find the way out, in and through at the same time. By walking the labyrinth, you are integrating, rooting, and expanding, integrating your conscious and unconscious selves, rooting in good soil with the ancestors, expanding through service. You are alive. Breathe. Give thanks. Give it away. I'd like to close this session and really close this series with a beautiful quote by Mahatma Gandhi, who says, "The best way to find yourself is to lose yourself in the service of others." I wish this for you, and have so enjoyed journeying through these 12 gateways with you. Thank you so much, and namaste.